Hello, everyone. Bienvenidos. My name is Patricia Alvarez McHatton. I'm the Dean of the College of Education and P16 Integration, and we have the privilege today of hearing from one of the great thinkers of our time. Our guest speaker is a best-selling author, autism activist, an inventor, and a world-renowned animal behavior expert. She's designed humane handling systems for cattle processing facilities and consults with the meat industry to develop animal welfare guidelines. She's a prominent author and speaker on the subject of autism and is currently a professor of animal science at Colorado State University. And I learned when I met her earlier today that she also worked in construction before she went into the work that she's doing right now. To say she's accomplished is an understatement. She was diagnosed with autism at an early age. What was once considered challenges truly became her strength. She overcame labels and obstacles and used her unique way of thinking to change the cattle industry. She's here today to share her insights on working with children with autism and giving them the tools they need to succeed. She offers hope and inspiration, and I know so many of you have been eagerly awaiting her arrival. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the brilliant and talented Dr. Temple Grandin.
Well, it's really great to be here, and I've got lots and lots of things to talk about today, and I think maybe I'll just start out and talk about autism's a really, really big spectrum. Einstein would be labeled autistic today. No speech until age 3. What would happen to him today? The problem is, the changes they made in 2013 in the diagnostic criteria, you now have a spectrum that goes from half of Silicon Valley, all the engineers at NASA, most of them, to somebody who can't talk and has a lot more handicaps. It's not precise. When I was a little kid, I was nonverbal. I had very good early intervention. Cannot emphasize enough the importance of early intervention. You gotta work on these little kids when they're really young. You got a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old, it's not talking, doing a lot of weird behavior. The worst thing you can do is wait. Work with them now. And don't get hung up on the labels. This diagnosis is not precise. It's not like diagnosing, Lyme disease or West Nile or, meningitis or something like that, or tuberculosis that have an actual lab test. It's a behavioral profile. When does geeks and nerds become mild autism? There's no black and white dividing line. You see, a brain can either be more social or a brain can be more thinking. Don't get hung up on it. And then kids go around and say, well, I have Asperger's, I can't do that. Yeah, there's a few things, little accommodations you need to do. Remembering long strings of verbal information is really hard. So you have to write it down. Scientists have learned a lot about the brain, and where you have problems is in the inter-office circuits, or the inter-office circuits between different parts of the brain. That's where you've got abnormalities. Now we need to be looking at a lot of personality traits, sort of like a music mixing board. You can be more social or less social, more anxiety, less anxiety, more visual, less visual, more mathematical, less mathematical. This is a really good model for looking at inherited traits. It's a music mixing board. This is not simple things like you either have it or you don't. It's what's called a continuous trait. When does geeky become mild autism? Well, I saw lots of people on this NASA television that would definitely be on the spectrum, especially the young engineers. Okay, you see, when you hear a word, you see a word, speak a word, or you think about a word, different parts of the brain turn on. And then you've got to have inter-office communications, and that's where a lot of the problems are. There's my head. Now, this is a special brain scan showing cable bundles. And you can see down there in the bottom little tiny threads. Those are single neuron tails. They're called axons. They form cable bundles, maybe this far going across the brain. Yeah, you get a bad injury, head injury, and you rip those, it's a real mess. Then your brain's running on side streets. Okay, now that is a cable bundle of nerve tails, axons, single nerve fibers, that forms a circuit for speak what you see. It goes from here to here. And that's a normal one. That's mine. I got a lot of extra bushies. And that probably explains why when you give me a key word, I get pictures, sort of like Google for pictures. You know, when search engines first got invented, I go, wow, this is like how my mind works. Well, who do you think makes search engines? Let's think about that. It's what's called bottom-up thinking. You know, Watson, the computer that won at Jeopardy? He thinks the same way, bottom up. And I paid a price for those extra bushes. There's always a trade-off. I had less nerve tails for speak what you see, so I had delayed speech. Yeah, with this brain scan, you can do that and tell you how many social circuits are messed up. Okay, speak what you hear. Oh, I've got a little tiny shrimpy thing. I am definitely not an auditory learner. Now, I used to joke around that I had a big visual thinking circuit. Turns out that I do, probably in the top 25%. Okay, this is what's gotten messed up. Well, you can see on my left parietal area, kind of trashed out the algebra department. One problem that a lot of kids are going to have is working memory. See, if we use computer technology, it's like I got a really slow chip, but I got a huge amount of hard drive. In other words, you're trading hard drive, or maybe it's flash drive now, you know, long-term storage. So if I can make graphics files out of stuff, I can remember huge amounts of information, but my processor is really bad. Working memory. That's one of the reasons why algebra is so hard, because it taxes working memory. I am a photorealistic visual thinker, and I talk about the different kinds of minds in detail in my book, The Autistic Brain. Can't do algebra. Think in pictures. The mathematician's the pattern thinker. They don't think in pictures, they think in patterns. These kids will often have trouble with reading. Then you got the guy that's a history buff, he loves history, a verbal thinker. You know what job they might be good at? Specialized retail. They'll know every type of shoe or every type of produce or something, you know, that's specialized. Photorealistic thinkers like me are going to be good at things like industrial design, graphics, photography. And the pattern thinkers are your programmers, your engineers. We need both kinds of minds. This is not my mind. This is how the pattern thinker thinks. This praying mantis is made out of a single sheet of folded paper. What's in the background is the folding pattern. Definitely not my mind. There's two ways to do the algebra, you know, verbally, visual, spatial. Education has got way too much top-down thinking. And I was so happy to find out that the head of the education department here at this university used to be an electrical contractor. So we kind of had some heart-to-hearts about construction industry and how that affects getting the job done. We've got to get more of that attitude. This brings up another important thing. I got involved with the cattle industry because I was exposed to beef cattle when I was 15. We've got to get kids out doing things. You know, there's a lot of geeky kind of kids on the spectrum that'd be great at auto mechanics and diesel mechanics. There's a huge shortage of skilled trades right now, huge shortage. When the oil boom was going on, the oil industry was going nuts trying to find welders, machinists, and maybe about 25% of these kids, that's where they ought to be. It's not for everybody, but you gotta keep working with them. And I realized how much being in the construction industry affects how I think. You gotta get the job done. I'm saying, oh, poor little Asperger. You know, I don't really care what he's labeled. Can he talk? Can he walk? Can you read this USA Today? Okay, I like to use the paper. You can't cheat on this test because I had a new paper every day. I'm not going to ask you to read about some complicated thing about interest rates. I want you to read the article about the hurricane. Okay, tell me about it. That's basic reading. 6th grade math. There's some, you know, that's all you need to do to be the head of a company. But you got to get the job done. We got to be thinking about getting them into job skills. When I was 13, I did a sewing job, and when I was in high school, I ran a horse barn. I also did adult construction without fall protection. We can't do that today. But things like the sewing job in the neighborhood and working in a little independent store around here, yes, we can be doing that. Middle school kids, walking dogs, fixing computers, work on the church website. You know, there's a lot of different things in the neighborhood. Gotta just find those things. Jobs for the visual thinkers. Industrial design, that's basically what I do. Graphic arts, drafting, auto mechanics, fixing computers, AV technician. Oh, I was so fascinated when I went to the Golden Globes. They took this boring old Hilton, and they turned it into this fabulous place, all with scaffolding. And they weren't allowed to make one hole in the walls or in the floor. So I was real interested in how they did that. The tables were on a false floor. Boy, and there were lots of geeks back there that put all that stuff up. Great jobs. I just look at that and I go, man, jobs. Animal trainer. There's a lot of kids in the animal science department who want to be veterinarians. And veterinarian is a great career. But why so many kids want to be veterinarians? Because it's the only animal job they get exposed to. Okay, the pattern thinkers. Computer programmer, engineer, physicist, statistician. Verbal thinkers. These are your history buffs. Specialized retail. How about stage actor? They've been having to act all their life anyway. Sometimes they're really good at things like stage acting. But you're not going to find out you like acting if your school doesn't have a school play. You see, theater and drama, that's a career. See, I'm getting worried. Some of the schools in some of the states are taking out so many of the things that make exposure to careers. How about jobs for people that are nonverbal? There's a lot of things they can do. We've got to figure out what they can do. I had a chance to meet a guy. I was in a wheelchair, and I looked at his portfolio of photography, and I said, this is really good. He didn't realize how good his stuff was. You should be doing photography professionally. Now, obviously, you can't go up a mountain in a wheelchair. There's plenty of places you can go, like flower shows, things like that. He took beautiful pictures of plants and flowers. And now he's teaching a course in photography. You know, he's really out there doing some things. You know, let's encourage things that can turn into careers.